for both political and racial reasons, as many Jews who look like me do have white privilege despite having rye bread genetics. Now, I've been emotionally exhausted in the comments explaining to some of my fellow Jews and others who support Israel why their arguments are super invalid. Most arguments are based either on logical fallacy or blatant racism. Anyway, I narrowed it down to a handful of arguments, and I've been copy-pasting my responses because they're so incredibly predictable. But I want to share them in a video too, so that you all have talking points when you're having these hard discussions with your family and friends. This isn't genocide. Now, today's the 28th of October, and horribly, you're going to have to update this. But since 10/7, Israel has murdered 8,005 Gazans, including 3,324 children, 2,062 women, and 29 journalists. That number climbs every day. War has rules. This is genocide. Israel isn't killing innocents. Literally so much photo and video evidence is available to you. They are killing innocents. You are willfully ignoring this evidence and the atrocities being committed in our name. But the world is not. You will look around soon and realize you stand alone in your hateful beliefs. You defend Hamas. Caring about innocent civilians on both sides is not the same as defending Hamas. This is a straw man argument, and you're going to have to come up with something better. I guess you don't care about the murdered Israelis on 10/7. I condemn all acts of violence on humanity, especially innocents. We weren't given the opportunity to grieve before Israel began immediately bombing Gaza. And while the 1,400 Israelis who were murdered is tragic, and some Israelis are still being held hostage, I can't turn away from the horrific climbing number of dead Gazans. It is disingenuous to selectively mourn for our own. Israel has the right to defend itself. Killing innocent people is not self-defense, it is offense. Israel has the ability to do targeted operations, yet they bomb indiscriminately. If you can appreciate that Hamas is in the wrong and didn't act in self-defense, then you must also appreciate the Israeli government is not acting in self-defense. Go to Gaza and wear your Magen David, or they'll kill you for being a Jew, or they want all Jews dead. Who is they? If you mean Hamas, Hamas is not the same as innocent Palestinians. That's who I defend. If you mean all Palestinians, well, this is racist propaganda. And by the way, shout out to these people for actually wishing death upon me. Like, I'm way more afraid of you now than I am of anyone else. So, Palestinians voted for Hamas, so they are guilty of what Hamas does. This vote occurred in 2006. Hamas received only 44% of the total vote, and they have not been allowed an election ever since. Now, as you know, children make up about half of Gaza's population, so only a fraction of the current population ever cast a vote for Hamas. Those who did vote were mostly voting in opposition to the ruling party at that time, Fatah, which they felt was corrupt. They wanted something better, but they didn't have great options to choose from. Americans can actually relate to that. We would strongly push back against claims that we were guilty for the awful things our government does. That goes for Israelis too. Are they guilty and deserving of death for what Netanyahu does? It's dehumanizing and dishonest to have such clear double standards. Jews have nowhere safe to live without Israel. 54% of the world's Jewry lives in harmony with other cultures somewhere other than Israel. Yo, you're not a real Jew. This one's got to be my favorite. Just because we disagree doesn't make me any less Jewish, even if it might give you comfort. My views and practices honor Jewish teachings. Yours don't. It's against Jewish teachings to accuse me of not being a real Jew. Murder is, of course, against Jewish teachings. Now, it's not too late to remember who we are and what we really stand for. You are anti-Semitic. This is such a low blow. Use of this word against our own is despicable. I even said it in my original video, but I doubt you listened. Use of it to defend genocide and oppression is horrific. It loses its meaning when it's used as a weapon. You're too young to have an opinion, or naive, or immature. I'm 36, but how old do I need to be to understand that murder is wrong? You'll need to come up with an argument that isn't predicated on ad hominems. I don't currently live in Israel, so I can't possibly understand what's going on there, so I shouldn't be giving my opinion. It's really interesting to me that the requirement, in your eyes, to understand what's happening between Israel and Palestine is being Israeli. The requirement is to be biased. Got it. You don't need to live in Israel to understand what's going on there. You don't need to live in Israel to be a human, to have humanity, to care about other people. And by the way, I don't need to live there to suffer the repercussions of the increased anti-Semitism that this shit is causing Jews everywhere. Last thing, if you have to fight so hard to defend your point against so many people from different backgrounds and groups and cultures and countries, maybe consider that you are wrong. Maybe consider that this is wrong.